Hey everybody, it's You Had to Ask, the show where I answer your questions, and this week's first question comes to me from Heather Fusilier, who asks, Steve, there's been a big push toward Common Core standards and STEM, science, technology, engineering, mathematics, in education lately. My concern is leaving out the arts in these programs, as the arts tend to connect all of these subjects. What do you think about this? I think we agree on this. I think that the increased emphasis on teaching science and math and engineering is a good thing and is important, but it seems like the arts are always the thing that get cut whenever people decide we're spending too much money on education, which is a weird conclusion for people to reach anyway, I think. But as important as science is, as you would know if you watch my videos fairly regularly, I mean, I was educated as an English major. I'm a writer. I'm drawn to storytelling, and as important as all those practical applications for science and technology are, and they're incredibly important, the main thing that attracts me to science is that it reveals how beautiful the world is. I mean, there's sort of a poetic aspect to it that really pulls me to it. And if you're not instructing students in art appreciation, if you're not teaching them to write, if you're not teaching them to express themselves, if you're not teaching them to sort of see the world as a whole and grapple with what it means to them, and all those big hoity-toity artistic things that people learn when they learn about the humanities or they learn about art, then the science, for many of them, is going to come across as very cold and very technical. And the cold, technical parts of science are incredibly important, but it would be a shame if they lost the beauty of science because they're just being taught the sort of numbers on the page, and they're not being given the tools that they need to interpret it and to view it in a more artistic sense. One of the things that really irritates me every time I hear it is there's a PSA that plays on the radio, and it's calling attention to high school sports. And every time I hear it, I think, do we really need to sell people on high school sports? Because the guy on the commercial is like, high school sports aren't just about competition. It teaches students valuable lessons and blah, blah, blah. And that's great. I'm sure high school sports are great for people. But, I mean, it's not the football team that gets cut when the funding comes down, I mean, it's always the art program. It's always the after-school stuff for the English club or the science club, or it's never the football team. Like, do we really need to be encouraging people to spend more money on sports? Why don't we spend more of the money on the arts? That's what I would, every time I hear that commercial, it's just like a drill bit in my ear. Here's one from Stephen David Sobol. Hey Steve, in your creationist arguments I'm tired of hearing series, you do a show-stopping pastiche of Carl Sagan without ever resorting to a parody of his accent. I know you are a fellow fan of Sagan's work, so I'm wondering if you have a favorite quote or passage from his vast catalog that you could share with us. It's a pretty common one. I'm sure you've heard it 1,000 times if you're a Sagan fan. It's, if you wish to bake an apple pie from scratch, you must first invent the universe. Troubleshooter 125. Steve, it's happened. The YouTube party has spoken, and the groundswell of popularity is undeniable. You have been nominated to run for President of the United States. So, Mr. Candidate, what is the platform you would run on? Or is this situation so aberrant to you that if nominated, I will not run, if elected, I will not serve? My platform is pretty much all of the typical liberal pipe dreams. I mean, it's stuff that would probably bar me from actually being elected, and if I did somehow get elected, would have very little chance of ever being accomplished. Increased taxes on the wealthy, increased benefits to the poor, rolling back the more intrusive elements of the Patriot Act, ending the war on terror, closing Guantanamo Bay's prison camp, spending more money on public works, building up the infrastructure, revamping the power grid, more money for space exploration. I mean, things like this, things that I usually talk about that just are popular with a small subset of the population, but are really expensive, and there are lots of reasons not to do and just would never get done. But my platform would be stuff like that, and that's why I would either not be president or I would be a really lousy, ineffectual president. Claydo34. I am a former Mormon, and I left the church after debating the Book of Mormon to be true. I lost horribly. I am 17 and almost ready to move out. My parents are always telling me in a crying, piteous way that I will eventually be brought back to the church and that God loves me and all that bullshit. This is extremely aggravating. My rash side wants to crush them, but then I would be the bad person. My good side wants to console them, but they would just cry more and condemn me. What should I do? You should veer more toward the good side. You don't want to cut off your parents or do some horrible, irreparable damage to your relationship with your parents, especially when you're so young. I mean, I feel like an old fart when I talk to you like that, and I'm trying not to be condescending, but I mean, you're only 17. You have a long way to go yet. You might want to have your parents around in your corner for a lot of that and have a good relationship with them. It's a really tough spot. It's something that I have never experienced personally. My parents have been pretty blasé about my atheism, and I wasn't raised in a super religious household to begin with, so it's not, I don't have one of those difficult sort of coming out experiences that unfortunately a lot of atheists have. My only advice would be just to ask your parents to respect your right to your beliefs. You know, they don't have to respect your belief, and if they are devout Mormons and you're an atheist, then they don't respect your belief, just as you don't respect theirs. But just ask them to respect your rights as a free person, as an adult, to hold your own beliefs, and consider that just because you're not a part of their church anymore, that doesn't mean that you can't have a relationship. It doesn't mean that you're not still their child and that you can't still have the same love and the same relationship that you had before. That's the best I can tell you. You know, just ask for their respect for your right to believe as you do. Don't don't try to destroy them. You know, don't burn any bridges. Just ask for their respect. Here's one from Jason. I have a question. Considering your love of comic book characters, is there a character or series that you would like to see made into a film? Oh yeah, Captain Marvel. The original Captain Marvel, Shazam. I think if that was done right, that could be so much fun and so awesome. That's always at the top of my list. I would love to see somebody take on like a Captain Marvel movie and have it be fun. You know, have it be like lighthearted and witty and creative, and not like The Dark Knight, not like God knows, not like Man of Steel. Just something that's, you know, fun and humorous, and that would be so awesome. Captain Marvel is one of the great superheroes, one of the great underappreciated comic book characters that there is, because it's just so much fun. It's such people talk about superheroes as being wish fulfillment, you know, as being like a child's power fantasy, and Captain Marvel is by far the most obvious of those. I mean, he literally is a child who can become an adult, and a superpowered adult at that, and I mean, the potential there is limitless. Backfire Pictures. What is your opinion of male infant circumcision? I think males should have some say in what is essentially a cosmetic / religious surgical procedure. I was circumcised. I don't feel like I was mutilated in any way. I don't think it's affected my quality of life. But having said that, if I did have children and I did have a son, I wouldn't have him circumcised. I just see no reason to do it. I mean, as you say, it's a religious rite, and I'm not a member of any religion, so I just don't see any reason. I don't think there's any compelling medical reason to do it. It's purely just a mark for religious purposes, and I just would see no reason to do it. If the kid grows up and he gets to be 18 and he decides he wants to cut the tip of his dick off, it's his decision. Here's one from Alan Munguia. Dear Steve Shives, how do you feel about Caden Calgar and his Straight Pride Month? Or how about Junior Factor Nation, or any right-wing group or right-winger in general bitching about what has happened with Prop 8 and DOMA? Well, I'll say this about Caden Calgar. At least he has a better reason than most of the right-wingers for acting like a 14-year-old bitching about gay rights, because he actually is. Caden Calgar is a novelty act, with the novelty having long since worn off. I'm amazed that he still has a job anywhere in media. I mean, I'd actually forgotten that he was even a person until you asked this question. He's a punk. And as for the right-wing bitching about DOMA and Prop 8 in general, I mean, in a way it's enjoyable. It's fun to see them rend their garments over this, because it's such a minor deal. I mean, it's not going to cause any harm to anyone, but they're treating it like it's the coming of the apocalypse. Oh my God, gay people can get married in some places now. I mean, the rest of the world is looking at this going, what the fuck is the big deal? You guys, you realize you're like the 50th people to do this. Why is this such a big deal for you? So in that sense, it's fun, but it's also disappointing, because these are grown-up people. in a country that is supposedly built on values of independence and freedom and liberty and being able to sort of chart your own course, and yet the notion of two people of the same sex getting married is just such an abomination to them, and they're willing to go to such lengths to prevent it, even though it really, if you're a straight person, it has nothing to do with you at all. You know, it's someone from a completely different group asking for a right. You don't have to give up anything at all. There's really no reason for anybody to be against it. But you know, so for that reason, it's disappointing. But I can usually push that aside and just sort of laugh, because I mean, when Mike Huckabee sang "Jesus Wept," you know, I mean, you can either shake your head and go, "Oh, this is terrible. How can they react this way?" Or you can say, "Yeah, well, fuck Mike Huckabee." And I think it's always more fun to say, "Fuck Mike Huckabee." Bogdan M. I've just watched Christopher Nolan's Insomnia and enjoyed it very much. Now that I've seen it, The Dark Knight seems to repeat a lot of the themes, and indeed the main question of that movie, though this didn't change my opinion about how good the Batman movie is. Do you think that directors revisiting themes in movies are a good thing? What's an example where this worked out great? Where did it fail? It's good if it's a good director and they have something to say about the themes. I mean, most legendary directors will have common themes that they return to over and over and over again, whether it's a really general thing like Kurosawa doing samurai movies, or whether it's, like you mentioned, Christopher Nolan sort of exploring complexities of heroes, you know, and showing people who are supposedly good guys who are forced to do bad things in the course of their story. It just, if it's a good director and he has particular themes he likes to explore, then it works out great. I mean, a great example is Alfred Hitchcock. I mean, Alfred Hitchcock explored multiple themes throughout his career repeatedly, you know, like the idea of the wrong man, the idea of the MacGuffin, the object, that it doesn't even matter what the object is, that the hero and the villain are both pursuing. And then there are stylistic themes that are constantly explored. You know, Stanley Kubrick always has this feeling of remoteness in his films, this feeling of detachment and of heroes sort of feeling like they're apart from their settings, or like they're sort of at sea with the world. So if it's a good director, it works. If it's a bad director, for instance, let's say Roland Emmerich, whose themes seem to include destroying as many recognizable world monuments as possible in disasters and alien invasions, then it doesn't work. I mean, it just depends on the director. A talented filmmaker can continue to mine the same vein in a creative way with a purpose, and it works out great. But if he's a shit director, it doesn't really matter. It's not going to work. Nuno Uno 001. Hey Steve, considering your strong stance against conspiracy theorists, I was wondering if you could give me some advice. You see, my sister is a delusional conspiracy theorist who believes 9/11 and the lunar landings were fake, the entire world is controlled by the Illuminati, and is a proud follower of Michael Moore and Alex Jones. She tries to convince me of her ideas, but whenever I bring up common sense, she just dismisses it. How do you handle people like that? Well, the best way to handle them, if you try to explain things to them and you present like a rational case and they just won't hear it, the best thing to do is just to laugh at them, because that's what they have earned. But if she's your sister, it's a little tougher, because I mean, she's a member of your family. You presumably care about her, and you don't want to alienate your sister. So it's a little tougher. I mean, it's a little tougher to like mockingly laugh right in your sister's face, you know, and sort of say, "God, you're such a fucking idiot." What, you know, what? Because that's your sister. It's a member of your family. So it's a little more difficult to handle. If it wasn't my sister or my brother or someone who I gave a shit about, if it was just a random person who believed all of this conspiracy nonsense, and I made my case and they weren't seeing it. You know, I was trying to point out where they were wrong and they just weren't hearing it. They would rather listen to Alex Jones. Then the best thing to do is to just laugh at them. I mean, there's really nothing else you can do at that point if you want to have any sort of interaction with them. Laugh at them, and if you care about them, try to talk about something else. Well, that sound means only one thing, that it's the end of the long drawn out long-winded answers, and it's time for
the lightning round. Rapid fire questions, glib and adequate answers.
Nish Brown, are there any actors, characters whose acting styles or roles they take just isn't to your liking to the point you avoid watching their work? Bill Paxton. Have not been able to stand him in virtually anything he's ever done. Jack Woodgate, have you ever seen a seagull eat a pigeon? No, I have seen an adorable, incredibly friendly stray cat swat a bird out of the sky and eat that, though. That was pretty sweet. Mr. Shannonite, you opened up with a Star Trek Voyager question, and you're not a fan, but wouldn't you agree with me that the character development of the EMH Doctor is one of the greatest character evolutions of all time? No, that is insane. Jaybird196, is there ever a good reason to steal? Yes. Danoid81, what is your favorite leg? It's the one I always have left to stand on after I argue with an apologist. JVCCam96, how many roads must a man walk down before you can call him a man? How many seas must a white dove sail before she sleeps in the sand? How many times must a cannonball fly before she's forever banned? The answer, my friend, is 42. Adderall Apocalypse, what were you drinking at the beginning of your review for Star Trek Nemesis? Was that a shot of Jaeger you dropped into that beer like commentator X-Tracker YT said? You know that a Boilermaker is a shot of whiskey in a glass of beer, right? Also, what kind of beer was that? It looked good. I prefer beer you can't see through. The beer was a Yangling. That's my beer of choice. And yes, that was a Jaeger. That wasn't a whiskey. So technically it wasn't a Boilermaker. It was a Jaeger bomb. But see, people also make Jaeger bombs using e-drink instead of beer. So it's confusing. It's one of the drinks where you drop something in a little glass into another big glass with shit in it and you drink it. I don't know what the fuck it's called, okay? Hey, that's it for the questions. Before I go, I want to do a shout out. And the shout out is a little special this week. It goes to Trolling with Logic. The YouTube handle is Zulu Fight Runner. And on July 6th, which is tomorrow from the day that I'm posting this video, Saturday, I will be participating in Trolling with Logic's annual charity broadcast. And the cause is Mental Health Ireland. We'll be raising money for Mental Health Ireland. And I will be a guest on the broadcast from 11 p.m. to midnight Eastern time. That's my time, so do the calculation for yourself if you want to watch it. And I will be there for my hour. I will be one of many, many people participating. Fellow YouTubers like Dick Coughlan are going to be involved, as well as actual real famous people like Eugenie Scott and James Randi are also going to be part of it. So it's really exciting, and I'm flattered that they asked me to be a part of it, and I'm only too happy to participate and to help out any way I can. So I want you to take a look at the hype video that Trolling with Logic made themselves. It tells you about all of the other guests and shows you where you can watch it and when you can see it. Please check it out, watch the broadcast, give generously if you can, because it's a good way of making yourself feel like a good person, even if you're not really a good person. So I'm going to say goodbye here. Watch the hype video for the Trolling with Logic annual charity broadcast on July 6th. And be sure to leave a comment on this video. Ask me your questions for next time. I love the questions. And I will see you next week. Enjoy the promo video and have a good one.
just gonna throw money at you. Woo! Woo! It's hot! Woo!
$3.